Audit inspectors of Reddit, what was the craziest thing you found during an inspection? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Number 10. I was the UK equivalent, Health and Safety Executive Inspector. I was inspecting an oil and gas production facility owned by one of the super majors. In one of the pump rooms, there was an eye wash station. On top of the eye wash station, someone had left a bottle of acid. It still makes me laugh, as no one was hurt. Imagining a scenario like that from a third-rate comedy movie where some poor soul got something in their eye, stumbles blindly to the eye wash station, and proceeds to squeeze a load of acid into their face. At my previous job, I went to retrieve some peracetic acid from our chemical area, and as I was pumping the PAA, I noticed the pump had a loose piece and was leaking. So I snapped the piece back in place. PAA shot out all over my face. I was wearing safety glasses, however, some of it rolled down my face behind the glasses and into my eye. I rushed to the eye washing station, which was poorly placed next to a drum of caustic. I realized the station was completely covered in caustic, and I didn't feel safe using it. I had to run across the brewery to a hand washing sink to wash out my eye. It was no fun. Worst eye pain I'd ever felt. That place didn't take workplace safety seriously. Glad I'm no longer there. Number 9. Non-American OSHA. You people know that meme about the forklift carrying its younglings so they can reach the top of the shelf. Exactly that, but IRL with a 6-ton and a 1.5-ton forklift in a building with 1 ton per meter square floor carrying capacity and about 1 ton of flammable as cargo. I'm no longer a safety inspector to keep my own health and sanity. Number 8. I work in underground mining in Western Australia. Some of the I have seen is unreal. My favorite is a guy stripping off his hard hat, overalls, gumboots, and safety glasses to jump into a 1,000 liters IBC full of the saltiest water known to mankind to cool himself down. This was a severely overweight guy as well. I'm confident he no longer has a job in mining after the incident. Number 7. I worked with a guy who wanted to collect our lockout tagout keys for safety. Not so exciting, but bizarre and kind of scary. For those who don't know, every contractor on site has a key to lock machinery that need maintenance out of their functions. So in theory, the machine doesn't function until the locks from every worker are personally removed when work is finished, and everyone is a safe distance away. These things would have smeared my macerated body all over the place. I trust the locks a little more in my own hands. Number 6. Not OSHA inspector, but I was visiting a new oil and gas site in Russia to resolve some issues with equipment our company had supplied. My contact was responsible for that whole area of the site, so I used to accompany him on walks round in the morning to check on the status of things. One morning, we rounded a corner to be confronted by a paint team working on the side of a large square metal structure, large like 4 or 5 stories high. The paint team, like a lot of the other assembly crews, were predominantly from Asia, where health and safety is rather more lax than it should be. Their painting method consisted of a guy on a trapeze with a bucket of paint and a roller, being lowered to the side of the building on a rope, and moving from side to side applying the paint with his roller, while his mates held on to the other end of the rope. My contact screamed at them to stop, and I witnessed a massive dressing down of the entire paint team. Fully justified as he would have been within his rights to have the entire team fired on the spot. He explained that this technique was not acceptable, and the proper way to paint the building was to contact the scaffold team and have them erect scaffold and then paint the wall. While wearing harnesses, etc., etc., the team lead nodded and said he understood, stood his team down, and we continued our walk around the site. The next day, we were doing the same walk and approached the same structure, expecting to see that the scaffold team had started work, as it would take a couple of days to erect the scaffold before the painting could be started. The whole building was finished, immaculately painted, and no sign of the team or evidence of scaffold being there. We tracked down the team lead, who swore on his mother's life that the scaffold had been erected, the painting done, and the scaffold removed within the space of about 23 hours. It transpired that this was the last job the team had to complete before their contract finished, so no doubt they were keen to get paid and begin the long journey home, and no further action was taken. But looking at the dried paint in the sunlight a few days later, you could clearly see roller marks in a gently arc over the entire surface. Number 5. Not OSHA inspector, but was something similar. Rooftop flooded for leak test, in sections, mostly dry and one wet area. Guy took off his boots and socks and walked across 2 inches of murky water filled with nails, screws, jagged shards of cut sheet metal, and so on. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was a little off. On a similar note, I was shocked by a 220V cable submerged in water in a similar situation. I was wearing boots. Shocked, but was insulated enough that there was no damage. Regular commercial job sites are extremely dangerous. Everyone I know who does anything interesting has been dinged up severely, and I've witnessed people falling from ladders, drunk at work, stoned at work, drunk and stoned at work, on coke and DNA speed, PCP, people having heat strokes, fainting, breaking their legs and hands, saw a lift, temporary elevator. Drop out of control rocks and pavers fall from a crane more than once, saw someone almost get crushed between a swinging crane load of over a ton. Twice there was a major gas line break so big that it would have destroyed more than a city block if it had been ignited. The second gas line was high capacity and was hissing loudly even from a distance. Everyone was yelling "No fuego! No fuego!" I've never seen people run downstairs so quickly. It felt like the building was going up. One time an actual OSHA guy showed up to the job site. Never seems to happen. And his only complaint, despite all the obvious hazards, was that people having unlabeled water bottles might result in contamination. Number 4. Not an inspector, but was working on a job where some ceiling installer was on a scissor lift, bunch of guys underneath him, some working with water. Guy had a spotter who wasn't paying attention. As the lift operator was raising the platform, it caught onto a spider box cable, large electrical line, and was about to pull way too much tension. I ran over and yelled to get the operator's attention, then was forced to hit the E-shut-off switch on the ground. He yelled at me, the spotter yelled at me. Everyone looked at me wondering what I was doing. I pointed at the cable and asked him what he thought of it. Operator saw the cable and turned white as a ghost as he realized he almost cooked himself and others. Bonus. I watched from the 5th floor as some gate installers almost killed themselves. They were installed a huge side slider gate to a concrete wall. Gate popped loose and hit the ground, then fell over and nearly missed a guy by literal inches. The guy body slammed a porta potty to get out of the way. Number 3. Not an inspector, but I work in the food industry, and there are these big packaging robots in our factory. These things have gates that close of every part of the machine, so that no one can access anything while it's active, and it shuts down as soon as a gate is opened. Well, here's the thing. It takes a while to reboot the machine when it shuts down, and the operators don't like that. So in some MacGyver way they manage to rig the sensor in not noticing that the door is opened if they need to fix something or get some cardboard unstuck. Last year, a guy climbed into that machine to fix something, and while he thought he was safe, asked the new guy to press the start button on the machine to test if the fix had worked. The machine, however, didn't shut down because the gate had opened and just immediately restarted. The guy inside only had his ribs crushed because the new guy luckily had the reaction speed to press the emergency shutdown button in time. Safe to say we've been in safety meetings and giving safety training for over a year now. Number 2. A man crushed under a piece of marble. He was already meeting his maker and his mortal remains are seared into my memory. The owner hadn't checked on him in a few days and he probably had been conscious for a while, evidenced by the lack of nails, the scratch marks in the dirt on the block, and the lack of gas in the forklift. My first successful prosecution, go me. That's horrific. Number 1. I started work in a little factory. It's been operating for almost 30 years. The day I started, I noticed there were 0 fire extinguishers anywhere. None. Anywhere. In the entire building. Upon further inspection, there were no smoke detectors or fire alarms. I started asking around and the employees told me they hadn't ever had a fire drill. Ever. There wasn't even a plan. The welders told me there's fires in the building all the time and they just scramble to put them out with whatever is on hand. For some reason, no one thought twice about it. They didn't think about it ever. It was just cool. I asked the safety guy, like the manager dude that has health and safety on his badge. He lied to me and said that the plant was grandfathered into not having fire measures. Needless to say, I quit. I had a conversation with a friend who works with an OSHA compliance agency, and he alerted whatever authority could take action. My friend's employer actually ended up gaining a big contract from that factory to bring them up to code. The factory was ordered to do so under penalty. Alright folks, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us today. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your own story or thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. I'll see you in the next video.